Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. It is the truth. We receive it written in our heart, written in our mind. Thank you for the revelation of it. Thank you for all that you bring forth this day. In Jesus' name, amen. Please be seated, if you would. Today we're going to continue talking to you on the subject of redemption and bring a very important message that you must understand of how Jesus accomplished this. We've talked about the creation of man. We talked about the fall of man. We talked about how Jesus came in the chronology of the last week of Jesus. We talked about what happened from the cross to the throne. We talked about how Jesus fulfilled the first three feasts of the Lord in his first coming. Today we're going to talk about how Jesus accomplished this legal work of redemption and what was absolutely necessary to do to see this come to pass, to overcome all of the works of the enemy. We see, begin in Genesis 3:15. This is what God said to the enemy, Satan, through the serpent. He said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed, that's Satan's seed, which would be all of mankind who was going to be born, because Satan was the spiritual father of mankind after the fall. And her seed, that speaks of the seed of the woman. The woman doesn't have the seed. That meant that this woman was going to get seed that was going to be put in her and bring forth a son. And that speaks of the virgin birth. It shall bruise thy head, thou shalt bruise his heel. Bruising his heel speaks of crucifixion. It shall bruise the head speaks of Jesus breaking the lordship of Satan over mankind and destroying all of his works. Once after the fall of man, Satan was the spiritual father of man. He was in authority over the earth because that authority had been given into the hands of Satan. He was ruling and operating. They had all his evil spirits in the heavenlies and throughout the earth. They were governing this place. And he also had the keys of hell and death. And that's where man was going, at physical death. Nobody could go to heaven because nobody was born again right with God. Everybody who died was destined to go to hell. The righteous ones would go to the upper compartment of hell, which was Abraham's bosom, a place of comfort, while the wicked would go to the lower part of hell where they were in torment. Quite a situation. Satan's in control of all these things. So, God, of course, had a means in order to accomplish this great work. It was a hidden mystery, a plan. He was going to accomplish redemption. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7. We speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the world unto our glory. Or before the age, this means. Otherwise, this hidden wisdom was in God. It was a mystery. Nobody knew it whatsoever, except for God. Which none of the princes, this means the rulers of this age, this is the word aeon, the rulers of this age were Satan and all of his evil spirits. None of the rulers of this age knew. They didn't know what was going on. If they'd have known what this plan was, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory, because that was a mistake on their part, as you will see, in order to accomplish the things that were necessary, which is to accomplish the redemption of man, as well as to redeem the earth, as well as to take back control of hell and of death. There were many things that had to happen. We're going to talk about this, and you'll see some very important things, understanding what God has done. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 11. Their Redeemer is mighty. The Redeemer is the Lord, and he is mighty and strong. Notice, he shall plead their cause with thee. The pleading of the cause is to conduct a case, or conduct a legal case is referred to, as it says, a suit, or it would be a legal case. Because God does things according to spiritual law. And because man had given the authority into the hands of Satan and had submitted himself to him and was spiritually dead to God because he had rebelled against him, God had to do things according to spiritual law. We come to Isaiah chapter 52. Isaiah 52. We pick up in verse 3. For thus saith the Lord, You have sold yourselves for naught. Man sold himself into the hands of Satan. But you shall be redeemed. And all they knew about was redeeming something with money by payment. But he says, you're going to be redeemed without money. There is another way that redemption works. They did not understand this, of course, at all. Now, could man do anything to get himself out of the situation he was in? Psalms 49. Psalms 49, verse 7 gives us the answer. None of them can by any means redeem his brother, nor give to God a ransom, which would be what was necessary, the price of a life, the ransom price, for him. Otherwise, nobody could do anything to redeem his brother. He couldn't give a ransom to God in order to accomplish this redemptive work, because the wages of sin is death. God's spiritual law demanded a payment of a death. Remember, as it says, Romans 6:23. The wages of sin is death. When Adam sinned, then of course he died. And in order to pay the price for sin, someone had to die who was sinless, who would accomplish the redemption, paying the price for sin. It would have to be, of course, a sinless man. And of course, we saw man couldn't do it. Man could not, of course, die for mankind because they're both spiritually dead under the dominion of Satan. They could do nothing about it. But a man was involved in the fall, so a man had to be involved in the redemption. So who could do it? Only God. That's why God had to become a man. And so we saw the scripture previously in Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and he shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God, or God with us. Meaning that this is going to be God becoming a man. It's through the virgin birth. And what was he doing in doing this? As Jesus came, we saw, of course, it was the second person of the Godhead coming. John 1:14, the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. This is Jesus, the second person of the Godhead, taking upon himself flesh. And when he took on flesh, how did he become like a man? He had to become just like a man in order to accomplish this. Well, he had to get a body, didn't he? And what kind of a body did he get? Romans 8:3, for what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. He had sinful flesh. He got it, remember, from Mary. Yet his spirit was right with God, of course, because his spirit came, that seed came from the Holy Spirit who had overshadowed him. It was the Word being made flesh when the Holy Spirit overshadowed her. Now, what was he doing? He's coming to bring redemption. Psalms 111. In verse 9. He sent redemption unto his people. He's commanded his covenant forever. Holy and reverend is his name. Redemption was going to come, and he was going to do this and work with man through covenant relationship, as you will see, in order to accomplish this work. So what did he have to do, of course? God had to come and visit us, and that's what we see in Luke chapter 1, down in verse 68. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people. He has come to do something about what had happened and to conquer the works of the enemy. The responsibility was for God to accomplish this work of redemption. And so man had to become, or God had to become a man, so he was a kinsman to man. And the way you would do this is through kinsman redemption, through a kinsman redeemer. We see over in Jeremiah chapter 31, speaking of this kinsman redeemer, of what he was going to accomplish, which was God bringing this forth. Jeremiah 31:11. For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob, and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Who's the one who was stronger than him? The devil. Notice there's two different words used here. The Lord hath redeemed Jacob. This is the word padah. We've talked about this in the past, but this is a word which means to achieve. When you look it up in the theological word, Old Testament, it achieves the ownership, the transfer of ownership from one to another through payment of a price. A transfer of ownership. And that's what had to happen because Satan owned man. And God had to get him back. And ransomed him. This speaks of the act of a kinsman redeemer. This is the different word, Gaal. The kinsman redeemer would do the work to accomplish the destruction of the works of the enemy and take him back from the one who was stronger than him. So this was going to be a dealing with the devil and overcoming him to accomplish this. He was going to, this word actually means, when you look at it and study it out in the lexicons, it means to avenge, to deliver, to rescue, to bring out of slavery, to recover and restore possessions, to bring a total restoration. And that's exactly what was going to happen. To do the part of a kinsman in redeeming man, that means, of course, that God had to become like him, and that's why he took like sinful flesh. Now, the rights of the kinsman redeemer. There's three things that he was going to do. He was going to purchase back the forfeited inheritance of the land. And what was the land that man had control over originally? It was the earth. So he's going to take back the earth. Also, he's going to ransom the kinsman from bondage to a foreigner, which was Satan, bring him back from under his dominion. And he was also going to avenge the death of a kinsman by the work of an adversary, meaning he was going to destroy all of the works of Satan that had been accomplished. This is what the kinsman redeemer was going to do. And we see Leviticus 25 and verse 23. He says this, "The land shall not be sold forever." God, remember, is the owner of the earth, and he gave it into the hands of man. He said, "For the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me." The land is not sold permanently. Instead, it was like a lease from God for a period of time given unto the hands of man. That's the way land is in Israel. They don't own it, essentially. It's actually leased to them. And we see that this, speaking of the lease, and we'll cover this a little bit later, but we'll look at one verse for the moment. Luke chapter 20, verse 9, where he spoke to the people the parable. A certain man planted a vineyard and let. The word let means to lease, to let it out, which is, when you look it up in the different lexicons, it means to lease or let something out, like a lease. To husbandman, which was man, and went into a far country for a long time, which was, of course, God is in heaven for quite a period of time, which was the 6,000-year period that man had control of the earth. So, this is a lease that was given into the hands of man. And of course, when he disobeyed, he gave it into the hands of Satan. He committed treason, and now Satan had the control of this lease over the earth. Leviticus 25, verse 24. "In all the land of your possession you shall grant a redemption for the land." This particular word for redemption is a different word. It is the word ge'ulah in the Hebrew, which means a right of redemption. Meaning that man had a right of redemption regarding the land. He could redeem that which he had lost. God set that up from the very beginning. So according to law, there's a right of redemption that could be accomplished. Meaning that if you sold the land or you lost the land some way, there's a right of redemption. You could purchase it back and repossess the land again. And this is what God, of course, was going to be doing, as we will see. Verse 25, "If the brother be waxen poor and has sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it," meaning a kinsman, could come and redeem what he'd lost. then shall he redeem that which his brother had sold. So a kinsman redeemer can recover what's been sold or what's been lost. And remember, Adam had sold the earth into the hands of the devil. So since he sold the earth and its authority in the hands of Satan, this kinsman redeemer is going to come and he's going to purchase back this forfeited inheritance. And the only one who could do that, of course, was Jesus, and he was going to accomplish it. The second thing that we mentioned that the Redeemer would do was to ransom his kinsman from bondage to a foreigner. Verse 47, if a sojourner or stranger wax rich by thee, and thy brother that dwelleth by him was poor, and sells himself unto the stranger or sojourner by thee, if he sells himself, which is what Adam did, to the stock of the stranger's family, after that he's sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brethren may redeem him. Meaning if he sold himself to a foreigner, a brethren, somebody else, which would be a kinsman, could redeem him back. And this is important because man sold himself to the devil. In doing so, one of his brethren then could redeem him and buy him back. And of course, we mentioned that man couldn't do it. It was only God who could do it. That's why God had to become a man to accomplish this. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 8. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath he'd sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you. He brought you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Pharaoh is a type of Satan. This means that he comes to redeem us out of the hand of Satan. And to accomplish this, this word redeemed is this word padah, meaning achieve a transfer of ownership from one to another, which is exactly what he did. He's going to buy us back from the devil. Jeremiah, he's going to accomplish this. Jeremiah chapter 31. Now, we looked at this once before, but we want to look at it again for a moment. He's also, the third thing was to avenge the death of the kinsman from this work of an adversary who was the devil. Man was spiritually dead under his dominion. He was finished. His life was destined to be in hell and be a slave of the devil forever. Well, he says, the Lord hath redeemed Jacob, transferred the ownership, and ransomed him to rescue him and deliver, this word refers to, from the hand of him that was stronger than he, that is, from the devil. He has coming to conquer the works of the enemy. So Jesus paid the ransom price to transfer the ownership of man to God and delivered, rescued, and recovered man and avenged what the devil had done and recovered man from the hand of Satan. This is what it's referring to here when we understand all this, as you will. In 1 John chapter 3, the second part of this verse tells you what he was coming to do. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. He came to destroy the works of the devil that were accomplished through the fall of man and through sin. How was Jesus going to have to do this? He was going to have to go through the avenue of death to do it. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same. He became flesh and blood, a man. That through death, through going through death, he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is the devil. He had to go through that to get to him. And deliver them who through fear of death, man had a fear of death because he knew he was going to end up in hell. That was his destiny after he died. Through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. This word means slavery, the condition of a slave. Man was a slave to sin. He was a slave to the devil operating through him with all the destructive things that happened in the earth. And, of course, he was going to end up in hell. That was where his destiny was. We see over in Hosea, in chapter 13, verse 14, another promise that God said, I will ransom them from the power of the grave. The word grave is not a good translation. It's not talking about the grave where the body goes, because it's the word Sheol. Sheol means hell. It is the place where the abode of the dead, in hell. He says, I am going to ransom them, which means to achieve the ownership, the exchange of ownership from the power of hell. I will redeem, this is the word Gaal here, I will deliver them, rescue them from death, because that's where they were. Death had control of them. They were under spiritual death, and they were under the penalty of death in hell. That was where man's destiny was forever. So, in order to accomplish this, there were some important things that had to be done. In Jeremiah, God had Jeremiah do an important thing in regards to accomplishing this redemptive work. Jeremiah 32, verse 7. Behold, Hanamiel, the son of Shallum, thine uncle, shall come unto thee, and saying, Buy thee my field that's in Anathoth, for the right of redemption is thine to buy it. We'll come back and talk about this later. But the thing you want to see at the moment is he had a right of redemption, a legal right of redemption to do something, to buy this field. And he comes along and says, So Hanamiel, my uncle's son, came to me in the court of the prison, according to the word of the Lord, and said to me, Buy my field, I pray thee, that's in Anathoth, which is in the country of Benjamin, for the right of inheritance. This is the right of, this word actually means possession, the right of the possession of inheritance. The right to possess the inheritance, which remember, man had given away, is thine. And the redemption, this is again this word geula, meaning the right of redemption, is thine. Buy it for thyself. Essentially, he was going to buy it for God. He was going to accomplish this with the right of the possession of the inheritance and also the right of redemption. He said, I knew this is the word of the Lord. So he was going to go forth and accomplish this. And we'll come back to talk about this in a little bit. There's another thing that's important. And this is over in Ruth, chapter 4. In Ruth chapter 4 and verse 6, here, and we'll come to this in a moment, but the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself. This is again this word, geula. He's saying, redeem my right of redemption, for I cannot redeem it. And we'll explain this in a little bit. Again, what we're wanting you to see is he had a right of redemption. In this case, he says, I can't do it. We'll see what that's all about in a little bit. Verse 7, Now this was the manner of time in former time in Israel concerning redeeming, geula, the right of redemption, and concerning changing. This is the changing or the exchange, which is talking about the exchange of ownership. There was a right of redemption, and there was also a right of exchanging the ownership of something. And these are things that God had to accomplish. So there's three things that he has to do, because man is under dominion of the enemy. So man has the right of redemption according to spiritual law. He's the one who had the possession of the inheritance. So there's a right of possession of inheritance that would be given originally to man and under spiritual law. And there's also the right of the exchanging of ownership of something also under spiritual law that you will see. And all these things had to be gotten control of by God and accomplished in order to see this redemption come to pass. Three things. Ruth gives us revelation of a lot of these things, and we're going to be looking at Ruth for a few minutes. Ruth chapter 2, in verse 20 we begin. Here it speaks about the work of the kinsman redeemer in the book of Ruth. The word here, when it speaks about this kinsman down here, as we'll read in verse 20, it says, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is nearer of kin unto us. He's one of our kinsmen. This is the word Gaal, one of the two main words for redeem, to act as a kinsman redeemer. Actually, the word Gaal is used 21 times in the book of Ruth out of 9 verses, and it's only used 104 total times in the whole Old Testament. And yet here we see 21 times in 9 verses bringing important things for us to understand about the work of the kinsman and redeemer and the act that he had to accomplish. Now, when he says this, he's speaking here how the Lord has not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. Notice, the redemption would affect the living who were alive then, but also the dead, which are all the dead people that had gone to hell, the righteous saints. It would affect them both. And Naomi is saying unto Ruth here, the man is near of kin unto us. He's one of our next kinsmen. This word is plural in the Hebrew. He's not talking about one person. He's one of our redeemers, as Young's brings it out. That tells you something also. There's many redeemers. Who are the redeemers? A man, a kinsman. All men had the opportunity to do the work of being a redeemer. So there's many redeemers. Now, it doesn't name this redeemer, as you will see. And why is that? Because there's many of them. And who is it referring to? It's referring to mankind in general. Mankind in general was the nearest redeemer. And this is important because when Jesus came, he wasn't the first one in line. He was after them, as you will see. In Ruth chapter 3, we come to verse 9. This is when Ruth is coming to Boaz, and she's coming to assert her right of redemption from the kinsman redeemer. And the kinsman redeemer that he was coming to was Boaz. She was coming to was Boaz. And here he comes to him. And he says, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. You're a Gaal. You're a kinsman redeemer. You're a near kinsman who can accomplish this redemption. What is she doing when she's coming there and spreading her, say, spread your skirt, speaking to him, over thine handmaid? The skirt was the corner of a garment, and it was the emblem of the rank or authority. If it's getting cool, somebody go and turn up that one. I've seen 2 people put their coats on. I can't do it. You guys got to go do it. Turn it up 1 degree if it gets too cool. So, the skirt was the corner of a garment and the emblem of rank or authority. You just push the button up to turn it up 1 degree. We see something explaining this also over in Ezekiel chapter 16. In Ezekiel chapter 16, we see in verse 8, When I passed by and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee, and entered into a covenant with thee, saith the Lord God, and thou becamest mine. So the spreading over of a skirt has something to do with entering into a covenant and becoming mine. What's this all about? This was Ruth asking Boaz to take the authority of his household, since he was a kinsman and redeemer, and put it over her. That's why I said spread this skirt over her, making a marriage request of him, so that they would enter into a covenant of marriage to accomplish the redemption. So she's invoking her rights under the laws of Israel for him to take her to wife and redeem her widowhood, because her husband had died and they had no child. And remember, Elimelech had died, and both of the sons had died, and there was no child whatsoever. And this is all important because they were all in the line of the Messianic line. And Satan, of course, killed them off because he's trying to stop the Messianic lineage that would lead to Jesus. Now, so he's saying, I want you to marry me and to bring forth the redemption in order to redeem her widowhood and bring forth a son. We see over in Deuteronomy chapter 25. Deuteronomy 25 and verse 5. If brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, so he dies without a child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. He just doesn't go find somebody else. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife. Otherwise, this kinsman, the brother, is supposed to marry her and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her, which would to bring forth a child. It shall be that the firstborn which he beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead. In other words, the brother who's going to marry her is going to bring forth a child for her, and this one who's the child is going to succeed in the name of the brother who's dead. Otherwise, the son is really the son of the dead husband, if you're following me. That his name be not put out of Israel, which means there needed to be a son to continue on the name of Elimelech, which was to continue on the messianic lineage. There had to be a son that had to come forth. This is called levirate marriage. So when someone had no child, they assert their right for one to raise up a son. And this was important. It had to be done for the messianic lineage, and we want to show you something. In Luke chapter 3, we're going to first go backwards from verse 38. This is showing the messianic lineage back to the kings. And if we go backwards, if you follow me, we have the Son of God. And who did he bring forth? Adam. And remember, after Abel died, then was killed, then there was another one that he raised up to be in the line of the sons of God, which was Seth. And then after him was Enos. After him was Canaan, and then Mahalalel, and then Jared, and then Enoch. Remember, Enoch was the one who was taken up. And Methuselah, and Lamech, and back to Noah. And then this is Shem, and it goes all the way back. It's showing that this lineage was the lineage that went back all the way, following back. And this lineage, it keeps on going back, and we see comes back through all these ones to Boaz, because he gets involved in this, to the Salmon, which was Boaz's father. He's the one that's going to come in this messianic lineage with the son Obed, which goes back to Jesse, which goes back to David, who is the king. And here's the line then of the Messiah, all the kings. And these kings, as it keeps following, without going through them all, we come back down to the last one, Jesus, as it says, that keeps following all these ones of this line of Judah, the kings. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli, showing the king's line. In other words, this is the messianic lineage that goes back to Jesus, starting with God and then going down that line. And Boaz was part in this line to bring forth a child. There had to be a child that had to be raised up. Now we go back to Ruth. It was the line of the kings of Judah. Ruth chapter 3, verse 12. He says, "Now it's true that I am thy near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I." Well, that's significant. This is Boaz speaking. I am a kinsman, and he's a type of Christ who comes to accomplish the kinsman redeeming work. But he says there's a nearer kinsman. There's somebody nearer. Otherwise, I can't do anything until it goes through the near kinsman first. Who's the nearer kinsman? It's mankind in general, because mankind was here before Jesus came. Boaz is a type of Jesus, who is the next in line in succession. But in order for Boaz to be able to assert the right in order to, as a kinsman redeemer, it had to go through the nearest one first, which is mankind. And we'll cover that in a little bit. Verse 13, this is what Boaz says. He says, tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of the kinsman, the nearest one, who's mankind, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of the kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of the kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth, lie down until the morning. First of all, this happened at night. What was man in? He was man as under darkness. He was not under the light, remember? He was in bondage under the devil. And so he's saying, you're just going to have to lie down during the night. Man would lie down in the darkness, waiting for the Redeemer, Jesus, to come. And he's going to show up in the morning, which is the time when the daybreak comes, which is the light. Jesus is the light that came into the world to accomplish this. And so, he, of course, has to say, at the same time, he's committing as the kinsman that he will do this work if the nearest kinsman cannot do it or will not do it for some reason. So he's committing to do this work. Who is this all type of? Jesus. How did Jesus commit to do this work? We see his committing to do this work when he had to go to the cross in Matthew chapter 26 in the garden. Why is this all about the garden? Because he had to commit to follow through, and the temptation was coming against him. Remember, he had tremendous temptation. He had sweats like drops of blood, and yet he didn't fall for what the enemy, of course, wanted him to do, was not to go through with this. This is when, in Matthew 26:39, he went a little further, fell on his face, and prayed, saying, "O Father, if it be possible, let this cup," what cup? The cup of death, to accomplish the redemption, "let it pass from me. Any other way to do this other than to die? Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt." He committed to do this work that needed to be done, which was all through death, as you will see. He did it again, second time. "O my Father, this cup may not pass from me except I drink it. Thy will be done." And then he did it a third time. He left them and went away and prayed the third time, saying the same words. So here's where Jesus committed to do the work, and he understood the work had to be done by going through the avenue of death. That's the only way it could be done. We go back to Ruth, and we come to another place in chapter 4. And here is Boaz. Now he's committing to do this, but remember, he has to go to the nearest kinsman first. So Boaz went up to the gate and sat him down there. This is the nearest kinsman. Behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, "Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here." And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit you down here," and they sat down. Why is all that? Because there had to be witnesses to this, what was going to be accomplished about this redemption. And so here, this is the unnamed Redeemer, because the general, the one who is the nearest Redeemer, is mankind. So, we come to verse 3. And he's going to tell this kinsman, this nearest one, the situation. He says to the kinsman, "Naomi has come again out of the country of Moab, sells a parcel of land, which is our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise it thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants, before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know that there's none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee." And he said, "I will redeem it." So the nearest one says, "I'll redeem it." Because remember what he said. He said, the land. You're going to buy this land, this parcel of land that was available. Now, one of the things we have to understand is that when a widow came to a kinsman redeemer wanting them to do something, the guy was not forced to do it. He had to be willing to do it. Because actually there were 3 conditions to be met for a kinsman redeemer to accomplish redemption. 1, he had to be qualified as a kinsman. 2, he had to be willing to perform it. And 3, he had to be able to perform it. And they had to execute a legal document to seal the agreement in the presence of witnesses, and that's why the witnesses were there to do this. So he says, I'll do it, because he thinks he's just buying the land. But now here's the next thing. Then says Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must also, now this is a problem in the King James, must buy it, thinking you're talking about the land also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead. Who owns the land? Naomi, not Ruth. Is this talking about the land? No. Notice the word it. It's italicized, if you can see that. You know, we told you italicized words are not in the original. It's not there. It's not talking about the land. It's talking about buying Ruth. Thou must buy also Ruth, the Moabitess. Otherwise, you're going to buy her, the wife of the dead. She's going to be your wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. So, there's two issues here. One, he's going to come and buy the land from Naomi. Two, he's going to have to take Ruth to be wife and raise up a son. Well, that kind of changes things a little bit. Verse 6, the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to inheritance to thyself. He had the right to inheritance. Now he's declining to do it. And notice he says, for I cannot redeem it. We'll cover that in a minute. But he's giving his right up because he says he can't do it, and he's passing it on now to Boaz. And this is all a type pointing towards, as you will see, man, who is the nearest redeemer, could not redeem. He could not accomplish the redemption, so he passed it on to the next in line, who was Jesus, who could accomplish this redemptive work. Now the guy says, I cannot redeem it. He didn't elaborate why he couldn't do this, but the laws of inheritance in Israel declared that the first son of a widow, which was Ruth, would be the son, remember we read that in Deuteronomy 25, to become the son of the husband of the family line, the one who had, of that family line, the one who died. So what this means is that if he married her and he had a son, it really would not be his son. It would go back to the son of that family line, which really goes back to Elimelech, because he was the family line head. And that means that the succession of his own name would be endangered, and he'd lose his inheritance if he only had one son. The other children would be different, but if there's just one son, and that's all he had, his name would be gone, because it would now go back to the dead Elimelech. So, from the natural standpoint, he says, this isn't going to work. From the natural state, he can't do this. His inheritance could be lost. His name could be lost out, and his inheritance would be destroyed. And we'll cover this more in a moment. Verse 7. Now this is the manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming, the right of redemption, when someone was going to pass on a right, and concerning changing, which is the exchange that would occur, because when you are doing this redemption, this right of redemption, there's going to be exchange of ownership of something, which in most cases was the exchange of the ownership of the land. But as you'll see, there's more to it than that. And what they would do would be, for to confirm all things, a man would pluck off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. The plucking off of his shoe was him voluntarily, willingly giving this into the hands of the next in line redeemer, so that then he could carry on and purchase this. So that's exactly what was going to happen. And so the kinsman said to Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you're witnesses today. I bought all that was Elimelech's and Chilion's and Mahlon's. Those were the other two sons, and from the hand of Naomi. And moreover, Ruth, the Moabitess, he bought her. The wife of Mahlon have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place your witnesses this day. So he takes her as wife. And we come down to verse 13. So Boaz took wife, and she was his wife, and we went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And that son was Obed, who was in the messianic lineage. We see the name shown down in verse 17. Women and the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, "This is a son born to Naomi," and they called his name Obed. He's the father of Jesse, the father of David in that line. So this was very important. So it's continued the messianic line, coming down the sons of God, ending up with Jesus, which had to be. But there is a much deeper revelation than this, because this is accomplishing the redemption of mankind from this situation. We go back to verse 6. The nearest kinsman is mankind. Can mankind who is spiritually dead redeem man who's spiritually dead? No, he can't do it. There's no way. That's why he said, I cannot redeem it. It's really a revelation that man could not redeem man from the situation that he's in, because he's already under the dominion of Satan. Remember, somebody had to pay the price with his life and die, and of course he had to be a sinless person in order to accomplish this, and man was under sin, so there's no way he could do it. It's interesting when you look up this word here, cannot. It is the word yakol. I want you to notice what it means. It means to prevail, to overcome, to be able to be the victor. It means prevail over, prevail against, overcome, be the victor, have the ability, and have the strength. Well, that's talking about whoever's going to do this redeeming work is going to have spiritual strength and be able to prevail and overcome and be the victor over somebody. And that's exactly what was necessary. The kinsman redeemer would have to do this, because who is the real problem? The devil. And he was going to have to prevail and conquer him. So he's going to have to gain the victory. And of course, who do you have to gain the victory over? It's over Satan. So the nearest kinsman, that's mankind under spiritual death, couldn't gain the victory over Satan, because Satan already had mankind in bondage to spiritual death. He was already in control of the earth as well, because man had given him the authority over the earth. So who could conquer Satan? It's only God. Who had to be the kinsman redeemer? It had to be God. At the same time, remember, God had to become a man, and he had to come in the same state that he was in, which is critical. He's got to come to the place of having the right of redemption, the right of the possession of the inheritance, and the right to bring forth the exchange of ownership. That is what was necessary. We come to verse 7. And here's the one about the redeeming, which is the right of redemption. But also here, there was the right of the exchange of ownership, which is what this changing is. And this is what was necessary. There had to be a transfer of ownership. And Jesus came to get the ownership out of the hands of Satan into the hands of God and get him reconciled unto him. And remember, that was the meaning of the one word, padah, for redeem, which means to achieve the transfer of ownership from one to another through the payment of a required price, which was the ransom price, which was Jesus dying. So, that's exactly what we see is going to happen. Jesus is the kinsman redeemer and going to accomplish this. We see over in Romans chapter 5. It speaks of this exchange in verse 10. If, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God. This is the word katalasso, which means the change or the exchange. We actually experienced the Redeemer's work of accomplishing the exchange of ownership. There was an exchange to God by the death of his Son. Much more, being exchanged, we shall be saved by his life. Not only so, but we also joy in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom we have now received, taken hold of, the exchange. The atonement here is this word, katalage, which means exchange, if you notice below. So, the exchange That's something that now that Jesus Christ has accomplished for us. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, we need to go back to something else. Remember, he talked about the fact that he was in, of course, he had this inheritance that was going to be destroyed. If we go back to Ruth, in the natural, that's true, but there's a deeper revelation here. He said, lest it might mar. This is the word destroy, if you see. It would destroy mine own inheritance. And who's this all a type of? Mankind under spiritual death's inheritance. There's a revelation that we're going to see here. What was mankind's inheritance? Going to hell. Forever. In bondage, enslaved to the devil forever. Remember, Satan became the spiritual father of mankind. We see this in John 8, verse 44. Jesus revealed this. You're of your father, the devil. Mankind was under Satan as the spiritual father, and he was in slavery. This is why his spirit was a slave to the devil. That's really what it says in Romans 8:15 when it talks about you've not received the spirit of bondage again to fear. The spirit of bondage means slavery. Remember, he was a slave to the devil, and they were in fear all their lifetime because they knew where they were headed, down to hell, to be a slave of the devil, incarcerated in hell. Now, we don't get a spirit of slavery again to fear that we're going to end up in hell again. No, but we receive a spirit of adoption whereby we cry, Abba, Father, because we are now coming in relationship with him, and we're going to be able to go to heaven. Praise God. Now, remember, he said, lest you mar or destroy my inheritance. In reality, mankind's inheritance had to be destroyed. Because what was his inheritance? Going to hell. Somebody had to come and destroy mankind's inheritance. And this is part of what Jesus did, to destroy the works of the devil. He destroyed the inheritance. Well, how could he destroy the inheritance? Well, he had to have the right of the possession of the inheritance, and he had to come to the place of being an heir in order to do this, to destroy the inheritance of mankind. He had to do some things. He would have to bring forth a new inheritance, because the present inheritance was he was going to go to hell for mankind. And so how can he do this? Jesus is the one who had accomplished what was necessary. Man was under the inheritance, remember, of going to hell. And in Matthew chapter 26, 28, when Jesus was talking about what he was making with his blood, and his body being poured out on the cross, he's going to go to the cross. He said, for this is my body, blood of the New Testament. Otherwise, he's saying, I'm bringing a New Testament into being, a new covenant. A testament is a will, a new will. That's going to be important because he's replacing the old will, which was one that brought the knowledge of sin. And what's the wages of sin? Death. It could never produce eternal life. There had to be a new one, a new will that was brought forth. So, in order to get into that position of having a right first to get this possession of the inheritance, first of all, Jesus had to get in the same position that man was in and to overcome that. Because remember, a man was involved in the fall, and a man had to be involved in the redemption. And how could it be accomplished? Only through death. So what did Jesus have to do? He had to give himself into the hands of Satan, which is exactly what he did when he died on the cross. Look at the statement he makes in Luke 22:53. Luke 22:53. When I was daily with you in the temple, you stretched forth no hands against me, but this is your hour and the authority. This is exousia, the authority of darkness. He gave himself into the hands of the devil. Also, that's when then he went to the cross, was made sin. So that means the devil was responsible for putting him on the cross. At the same time, God wanted him on the cross, but they didn't understand that because there was a plan hidden in God, remember? So the devils putting him on the cross, crucifying, killing him, they thought that was the way they were going to get victory. They thought that was the way it would be. And remember what we saw in 1 Corinthians 2:8 before about the hidden wisdom? None of the rulers of this age knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Who was responsible for putting him on the cross? The devils. Why did they want to do that? They wanted to do that because they understood that if they could kill him, they thought, then they could get the right of the possession of the inheritance, that it would not, he would not be, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Because let's go over to Luke chapter 20, that is, Luke chapter 20, and look further at what we saw at the beginning when we talked about this lease. We come over to Luke in chapter 20, verse 9. You got to understand that this inheritance, that Jesus was going to get the right of the possession, the inheritance, Satan didn't understand what was going on, and there was a battle for it in which we see what was needed to be done. The devils didn't know this, though. Look what it says. Here he began to speak to the people. A certain man planted a vineyard, let it forth, leased it out to a husbandman, which is man. He's got the right, he's got the inheritance of the earth, the right of the earth, the lease. And he went into a far country for a long time. He's got the lease over the earth, the authority. So all at the season, he sent a servant to the husband, should give him the fruit of the vineyard. The husband beat him and sent him away empty. Sent another servant, beat him, sent him away empty. Sent a third, they wounded him and cast him out. There's all the prophets that came. So the Lord of the vineyard says, I'll send my beloved son. That's Jesus. It will be when they will reverence him, they will see him. But this is a setup, because he was giving himself into their hands, but they didn't understand this. When the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, and the husbandman really is the devils that have control of it now, remember. They reasoned among themselves, saying, this is the heir. This is the son of the Father who owns the earth. He's the heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours. They thought if they killed him, they would get the inheritance. So, they're going to kill him off. And that's exactly what they did. They said, we'll kill him so that the inheritance might become ours. Become is the word ginomai here, meaning a subjunctive mood, meaning it might become conditional, but they had to kill him. So that's why they killed him. They thought they had it. They thought if they killed him who was the son, who was the heir, that then the inheritance would be theirs and that they would have control over all these things. No, it wasn't going to work that way. They didn't understand what Jesus was doing. This is a plan hidden in God, remember. So Jesus is going to the cross, and what does he have to do? He's got to get in the same state that man is in order to accomplish the redemption. Remember, somebody had to pay the price. Now, he never sinned himself, but he had to get in the same state to go through death. How do you go through death? You have to die, and how is he going to be able to be in that state? Be made sin, because sin, the wages of sin, is death. But it wasn't his sins, it was man's sins. He had to be made sin. So he's made sin on the cross in the 6th and 9th hour. And what happens then? The Father leaves him when he says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Now Jesus is forsaken. He's abiding in spiritual death, separated from the Father. So, as a spiritual dead man, he goes down to hell for 3 days and 3 nights. And what happened then? after the 3 days and the 3 nights, what happened to Jesus? He got born out of spiritual death unto spiritual life. Revelation 1:5, from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, who's the firstborn. You look at this, the firstborn out of, echoes the word out of, the dead. And remember, we pointed this out to you before, the dead is not talking about the state of being dead. This is the word nekron, which is plural. This is the dead. Where all the dead were, which was where? In hell, which was where man was destined to be. So Jesus was the firstborn from the dead. Remember, he had made a new covenant. And so now that he's the firstborn from the dead, what is he doing? Remember, man was spiritually dead, separated from God. There had to be a new race of man, essentially, that came forth spiritually. And that's exactly what Jesus brought forth. Colossians 1:15, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature, or of all creation, as Young's brings out. There's a new creation of men, of people. And it comes through Jesus as the first one, who's the first one, the firstborn of all creation. And it says again down in verse 18, he's the head of the body, the church, who's the beginning, the firstborn out of the dead, plural, the dead people. So he's the firstborn. And, of course, the good news is that it wasn't just him. It was now available for all mankind. And it even speaks of the fact that he might be the firstborn among many brethren, which are all the ones who are going to be born, who are going to be brothers and sisters, which is exactly what Jesus Christ has accomplished for us. Now, what did Jesus have to do, though? Remember, who had the power of death? The devil. So what did he have to do? He had to get the power of death. He had to go through that avenue to get to him that had the power of death, the devil. And who had the keys of hell and death? Satan did, because man was taken to there. So Jesus had to come in the place of man, spiritually dead, pay the price for sin, be born from life unto death, bringing forth a new creation of people. Then when he's born again, he now can get to the devil, remember, through the avenue of death. And what does he do? Here's his testimony. I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I'm alive forevermore, and have the keys of hell and death. Remember it said that the Redeemer said, I cannot redeem it. I can't do it. I can't prevail, overcome, conquer. Who could do it? Jesus. What did he do? He overcame and conquered Satan and took back the keys of hell and death. How could he do it? Because they had no right to hold him there, because of the fact that he never sinned. Therefore, having accomplished the redemption, he could then take back the keys of hell and death. And also, he could bring forth the exchange of ownership, because he's the one who paid the price. Remember, the redemption could be accomplished if someone successfully paid the price for the ownership of mankind. And Jesus accomplished that. Now, they're about this inheritance. What did Jesus have to do? Remember, he made a New Testament. Verse 15 of Hebrews 9. For this cause he's the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, through the avenue of death, the redemption of the transgressions under the first testament, he paid the price, all this was laid upon him, that they which are called, which is all of mankind, might receive, take hold of the promise of eternal inheritance. Well, how did that happen? It's because Jesus got the right of the possession of inheritance by becoming a man who died and was in the same state, but was born from the dead and overcame the enemy. And what else? How could he get what's this inheritance, though? It's the inheritance not from the old covenant, but from the new covenant, a new will. He made a new one, just like he brought the new creation. For where a testament or a will is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. Jesus had to die. He's the one who made it. But at the same time, it can't be the same person with the same spirit, because he would just be the same person. If a person dies and they come back to life, let's say in a car accident, well, their will they made doesn't pass on to the heirs. It'd have to be a new person in order to have the heirs take what the will says. That's because Jesus got a brand new spirit. It's not the same spirit that he has. As we see, a testament is a force after men are dead, otherwise it's of no strength at all while the testator liveth. He died, Jesus got a new spirit for mankind, and he brought the New Testament into manifestation. It couldn't come into manifestation until someone had died, the testator. Jesus died and paid the price. So, in bringing the New Testament into manifestation, that means the right of inheritance is in his hands. He has the right of inheritance. And he's got the right of inheritance for what? The possession of what man was given, which is the earth, the land. Now, remember, in Psalms 115, verse 16, the heavens, even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth has he given to the children of men, or to the sons of men. He gave it into their hands. But what happened? It got given away. Look at Lamentations 5:2 is actually declaring this statement. Our inheritance, which was the earth, is turned to strangers. That's the devils. It got given into the hands of the devils. Our houses to the aliens, the strangers. The devil got control of it. So, what is God going to do about that part? He'd already figured that one out ahead of time, going back to Jeremiah chapter 32 to see what he did. Jeremiah 32, verse 6. Here's when the word of the Lord came to him. And he said, behold, Hanameel. Hanameel means God is gracious. So this is God's grace, favor being shown forth. The son of Shalom, which is retribution. Retribution means to pay back for something that needs to be paid back for. Pay back the punishment for evil against the devil who had taken this away. And he says to him, buy thee my field, the field's a type of the earth, that's in Anathoth. What's about Anathoth? Well, Jeremiah knew all about Anathoth, what that was all about, because Jeremiah 29:7, Jeremiah was from Anathoth. Now therefore, why hast thou not reproved Jeremiah of Anathoth, which makes himself a prophet to you? Well, they thought there's no reason he should be a prophet, because this is a place that was a place of affliction. Anathoth means affliction. He was a prophet from the place of affliction. So what is this speaking of? It's speaking of the fact that he's now saying, as we go back to Jeremiah 32, verse 6 or 7, buy my field, the earth that's in affliction, for the right of redemption is thine to buy it. You got the right to buy back the earth. We already know about that. But there's something more. So Hananiel, Grace, my uncle's son, came to me in the court of the prison. Jeremiah is in prison at this time. And who's Jeremiah representative? Of mankind, who's in prison in spiritual death. According to the word of the Lord, he said to me, buy my field, I pray thee, that's in Anathoth, affliction. But then he says something, which is in the country of Benjamin. What's Benjamin mean? Son of the right hand. Meaning, who's the heir? Remember, the Son was the heir, the Father was Son, and the Son the heir. He's the heir of the earth, which is Jesus. Jesus came with the inheritance. He's the heir. And the field is in the Son of the right hand. For The right of inheritance, or the possession of the inheritance, is thine. Meaning that he was going to be doing this for Jesus ahead of time, showing this forth through the Word of God. The right of possession of the inheritance, Young's translates it possession, but it really means the right of possession of the inheritance is thine, and the redemption, Geulah, the right of redemption is yours as well. Buy it. So he's saying, hey, the right of redemption for the earth is yours, and the right of the possession of the earth is yours as well. Because this is the country of the Son of the right hand of Jesus. He is the heir over the earth. And you are going to buy this for him in order to do this ahead of time. I bought the field of Hanameel, my uncle's son, that was in Anathoth, and weighed in the money even 17 shekels of silver. What does the number 17 mean? The number 17 is the number of reversing the curse on the earth and ending evil in the earth, which is what Jesus was going to accomplish. How do we know this? We know it when we see what happened in Genesis chapter 8. This is when the flood was over. The ark rested in the 7th month. What's the 7th month? We're talking about end of an age, about this end of the church age, but it's also talking about an end of an age, essentially. It has that. And the 17th day, there's the 17th coming in, which is a number of reversing the curse on the earth and ending evil. That's when it rested on the mountains of Ararat, and when the flood was over. The word Ararat means the curse reversed. Meaning, after the judgment was accomplished of the flood, the ark was a type of Jesus, coming in the 7th month here, on the 17th day, ending this is all prophetic, the 7th month at the end of the church age, when Jesus is going to be coming back, the 17th day, coming to reverse the curse and end the evil in the earth, because of Ararat. In other words, that's what the 17 is all about. Jesus is going to pay the ransom price to reverse the curse upon the earth, and he has the right of redemption, and he's also got the right of the possession of the inheritance of the earth because he's the heir. Because he's the firstborn from the dead who brought the new covenant into being, and he is the heir. Remember what it even says about Jesus? A lot of times we don't think about these things until we hear this message. Hebrews 1:2, he in the last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things. Jesus is the heir. That's why the devils say if we can kill the heir, it's all over for them. It's all over for God. No, he didn't understand. They crucified the Lord of glory, but that was a mistake because he went through the avenue of death to get to him that had the power of death. He accomplished the redemption, being the one who could pay the price, who had the right of redemption, having become a man and becoming like man in a spiritually dead state. And he also was first born from the dead, so he brought the new race of men, the new creation into being. He brought the new will by making the New Testament, brought a new way into that through spiritual birth. And he's the firstborn from the dead unto spiritual life, being born again spiritually, brought into that. And Jesus now, he's the heir of all things. Let's go back to Jeremiah for a moment. 32. So we see that he bought this thing to reverse the curse and end the evil. I subscribed the evidence, sealed it, and took witnesses, and weighed them in the money and the balances. Subscribing the evidence and sealing it, this means this is a legal act. This is a deed. This is what it is. It's a deed. They sealed this thing, sealing up a deed. Took the witnesses to this transaction of buying this field. They're buying it. You buy it as a deed when you buy a property, right? I took the evidence of the purchase, both that which was sealed according to the law and custom, and that which was open. Gave the evidence to purchase to Baruch, the son of Neriah. And he talks about how he's subscribed the book of the purchase before all the Jews that sat on the court of the prison. He brought all this forth. And he charged them before, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, take these evidences, the evidence of the purchase, which both is sealed, and this evidence which is open. Now, what does that mean? There was things that were written that were sealed on the inside, and there was also that which was open on the outside, because they wrote it on the inside and they wrote it on the outside. And put them in an earthen vessel that they may continue many days. It's going to stay for many days, which is to the end of the age. Well, when we come to the end of the age, what does that mean? That means there's more for Jesus to do. And what's he going to be doing? After the 6,000 years is over, and Jesus Christ is going to begin to rule and reign from heaven. In order to do this, he's the one who's got the right of redemption to accomplish this. He's the one who brought forth the exchange of ownership, buying man, but he's also getting back the earth. And how's he going to take it? Remember, he had to be one to be able to prevail. He already prevailed over the devil and everything, and he's going to prevail again. Continuing, as you'll see. Revelation 5:1, I saw in the backhand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. What is that? Within and on the backside, that's a deed. The title deed to something that's been purchased, as we saw in Jeremiah. This is the title deed to the earth. This book. I saw a strange, strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, Who's worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? Somebody's got to be worthy. Someone has to be able to do this, who has the right of redemption, the right of possession of the earth, for the possession of the inheritance, and has the right for all these things, has accomplished this and able to have overcome, to bring this forth. No man in heaven or on earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. I wept much because no man was found worthy to open and read the book, neither to look thereon. One of the elders said to me, Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, the King, has prevailed. The word prevailed means to conquer and carry off the victory. That's the only one who could redeem it, remember, was when the guy said, I cannot do it. I don't have the power or the able to conquer and get the victory to do it. It's a spiritual revelation, prophetic, pointing towards Jesus. He was able to conquer, to open the book, and to loose the 7 seals thereof. We come down to verse 7. Came, took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. Take the book, 4 beasts and 24 angels fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, the prayers of the saints. And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book, to open the seals thereof. For thou wast slain, and hast redeemed us to God by the blood out of every kindred, tongue, people, and nation. He's the one who accomplished the redemption. And he brought the ownership as well, because he's made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. We belong to him now. We're priests, and we're going to be reigning with him. And so he comes down here, and we come to chapter 6, verse 1. I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. Now he's beginning to open this up, because written in this is the title deed of the earth, but also it's got all the things that are written about what is necessary to take back this title, the title deed to the earth, to possess it. Remember, it's the right of the possession of the inheritance. The conquering's not over yet. And I heard, as it were a noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse. Who's riding this white horse? Jesus. And he that sat upon him had a bow. And when it speaks of this bow refers to that which is of strength. And a crown, this is the word Stephanos, was given unto him. This is the crown of the royal ruler, which was given to those who got the prize for having the victory. The victor. And notice, he went forth conquering and to conquer. What does that mean? When it says he went forth conquering, this shows continually conquering, because that's what he's coming to do, to conquer all the devils and destroy everybody that's against him and take back possession of the earth. That he may conquer. Conquering. This one, that he may overcome. See, is that the right one? Did I get it? No, it's subjunctive. I thought so. Yeah. That he might, subjunctive, conquer and overcome. Meaning, he's got to go forth and do the conquering in order to conquer and take back the earth. You see, this is the title deed for the possession of the earth. And that's what Revelation is all about. It is not just the judgment on the nations. It is Jesus coming to conquer and take back the right of possession of the inheritance of the earth. And as he begins to open up these judgments, the destruction will come. And one of the things that we see that happens right off the bat is in Revelation chapter 12, when he talks about, in verse 7, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon fought and his angels. All these principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness have been operating in the heavenlies. The first thing that's going to happen on Nisan day 1 after the 6,000 years is done, day 1, you better believe when he opens this up, it's going to be all-out attack. And the devils are going to be wiped out. Michael, the leader of the warrior angels, and the angels are going to fight against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels in the heavens, and they're going to prevail not. They're going to be cast out. Their place will not be found anymore in heaven. And they're going to be cast down to earth, knowing they have a short time, and there's going to be havoc on the earth. Those who are right with God will be protected. And from then on, it begins to open up all the judgments that are going to come. Otherwise, he's going to clean house in the heavenlies right off the bat. And then he's going to start dealing with everything in the earth. At the same time, God is going to be bringing forth his final dealings with the Jews who rejected him all along. Remember, 69.5 weeks have elapsed, and there's only 1/2 week left, 3.5 years, that parallels the 3.5-year tribulation. So as the judgments are coming on the world, he also is dealing with the Jews to bring them to the place one more time. And it says all Israel is going to be saved and they're going to get born again. And all these judgments are going to unfold through Revelation in order to take back the possession of the earth. And Jesus, when he comes back, of course, what's he going to do first? Near the end of that Feast of Trumpets, catching up to meet the Lord in the air, we're going to be going up. Those that are holy and righteous, born again, are going to be going up to meet the Lord and be with him. The marriage supper of the Lamb occurs. And then we all come back on the white horses, and he brings the judgment, the final judgment. This is 10 days later on the nations. And then 5 days later, he begins the millennial reign for 1,000 years on the earth. Satan will be bound and thrown in the bottomless pit. All the unrighteous dead will stay dead in hell until the 1,000 years are done, and then they're all going to be judged and cast in the lake of fire. You and I will be in a position of authority and reigning with him on the earth in the millennial reign period for 1,000 years. Jesus had to do all these things. Satan didn't know what was going on. He thought he had him. He's the heir. We'll kill him. It's ours. Nope. It was a plan hidden in God. But look at all the things that Jesus had to do. He had to get the right of redemption because man had it. He had to become like a man. He had to go pay the price for sin. He had to be made sin and die. Go down to hell. Pay the price for 3 days and 3 nights. Be the firstborn from the dead. Bring forth the new creation of men born from the dead, the church of the firstborn. brought forth the change of ownership, bought us back from the devil, took back the keys of hell and death, so that now man, he doesn't have to go to hell anymore. He now can go to heaven if he's right with God. Remember, he preached the gospel to those ones in the upper compartment of hell, and they received, and all those guys came up and got their bodies, after the resurrection. All the ones that were in the upper compartment, the righteous dead that were held in hell, were liberated. No longer do they have to stay there any longer. They all could go to heaven. Jesus went up first, and then he took the rest of them up later. And they all went up to heaven. And now the way is made for us for eternal life. And so we have the whole church age. And this is where the ongoing work of redemption has been working and continues to work, which we're going to talk about tonight. Because there's an ongoing work continuing on, leading up to this end when Jesus is going to do all these things at the end time judgments, that he takes back the earth. And that's continuing on in our life today to bring us to the place of being delivered, healed, set free from the enemy, become like Jesus, walk in his ways, upright before him, becoming like him. The tremendous work that he's accomplished. And he brought forth the New Testament. He had to bring one forth because he had to get possession of the right of inheritance of the earth. Had to be a new will. He's the heir of all things. He got it. Now you and I are heirs. We are joint heirs with Jesus Christ. You have a right to all the promises of God. You have a right to all the blessings of God. That's why you got to live your life 100% for God. You can't live in sin or live according to the ways of this world. You're not even of this place. You're part of the church of the firstborn. You're born from above. How can you walk in any way other than the way of the Lord? That's essentially a denial of what he's done. That's why he says, hey, why do you call me Lord and you don't do the things I say? We got to put him first place in our life and do everything that he says and walk uprightly before him. He has accomplished this great work with the right of redemption, the right of the change of the ownership, buying us back, and also the right of the possession of the inheritance of the earth. And the restoration also, that involves the restoration of all things to us, which is what he's working in the ongoing redemption, to restore everything that the devil has stolen from you. Your health, your wealth, your peace, everything is to be restored in your life. Praise God for the wonderful work that he's accomplished. Say this: Heavenly Father, I thank you for the great work that Jesus has accomplished in the legal work of redemption. I rejoice in what he has done, and I will live in line with the Word of God all the days of my life. And I thank you for this great work that will be accomplished by Jesus in a short time when the church age is over and he's going to come back again. And I will be caught up to meet him in the air at the end of the tribulation time. And I will be there for the marriage supper of the Lamb. And I will come back with him as the destruction of the nations occurs. And I will be with him in the millennial reign of Christ, to reign with him for 1,000 years, and then to be with the Father in the new heavens and the new earth. Thank you for what you have done to accomplish this redemption. I thank you and praise you for it all the days of my life. And I will see this ongoing work of redemption accomplished in my life to restore all things that the devil has stolen. I will become like the Lord, and I will walk in your ways. I thank you for your marvelous work of redemption. In Jesus' name, amen. Praise God. Father, we thank you for everyone understanding the things that have been brought forth and the tremendous work that God has done to bring us to this place. I thank you. We rejoice in it. And we thank you for the revelation to the body of Christ of these things, and that they will walk with the Lord all the days of their life. In the name of Jesus, amen. Praise God.